I currently see there's a squirrel crawling into my shed. I hope he comes out and this doesn't create a disaster. Let's see if we can get a sneak peek. Uh-oh, he hears me coming. He's panicking. This could be a Christmas vacation event. Oh, there he is. Okay, hello little guy. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Okay, he didn't run up my legs. We're all good. Good morning, y'all, and welcome back to the garden. Today, I'm going to be amending my new garden beds that I put in the vegetable garden. Talk to you about what I have put in them so far, what I'm going to be adding before we start planting things. Yesterday, I got up my L-shaped trellis that I mentioned in a prior video. So we got an 8 length foot here, and then just a short foot to grow like cucumbers or 𝗗𝗢𝗗𝗘𝗢 melons up potentially. My dahlias will be planted on this side here, the ones I have left over. So there's a little bit of space there to plant, let them grow up. They can be tied to the trellis and be a beautiful view when you come in the gate here. Now, when I was choosing to fill these up, I mentioned in the video a couple videos ago about the metal raised beds, these beds specifically, that I have in the past used the 𝗩𝗥𝗢𝗘𝗢 method where you kind of throw debris in there, cuttings from plants or cleanup from plants, old logs that will break down over time. And I told you I found that I didn't like that method very much. I used it one year for the tomato bed behind the fence, and it just, the logs were probably too big. And so as the soil level continues to drop, you have to add more soil to it, and it creates an issue with difficulty in planting soil depth in some cases. So I filled these completely top to bottom with soil. Some of them is the soil that was in the previous raised beds here, and the rest of it I filled with a like general purpose potting mix. Now I have seen you can buy raised bed mixes now, but that can be kind of expensive. So I found something that was cheaper for me and then filled these up with that. On top of that, I put a really thick 2 to 3 inch layer of compost. And this year, because there was a sale going on at 𝗧𝗛𝗧𝗧𝗧, I chose Coast of Maine. They had a deal where you could get 2 of them for $15. And I chose Coast of Maine cow manure compost and lobster compost. And this stuff looks really good and dark here. You can see how wonderful it rained last night. So it is pretty dark. But other than that compost, there's nothing in here to really charge the soil. And since the potting soil I put in here was neutral, didn't have any fertilizer to it, I want to set this bed up for success. So I'm going to be doing this one today, and after I get the plants that I'm hoarding over here temporarily out, I will do those on another day. But what I'm going to be adding is some generically 𝗬𝗦 plant tone, which is their basic all-purpose fertilizer. I have a little bit of it left. You know, I'm kind of fertilizer agnostic, and I get a lot of my fertilizers, organic fertilizers, in the fall when they go on sale at Home Depot. Home Depot tends to put them on sale at an extreme discount around November around here. However, they did not do that this past year. After I mentioned it so many times, my Home Depot didn't put any of that stuff on sale. So it kind of made me frustrated, and I'm actually running low on some fertilizer. I usually have a pretty good stockpile because I do buy so much in November. And when I say discounts, I mean extreme discounts. Like these are some of the things I'm going to be using this year that I got 2 years ago. These are like 50 cents a bag, and normally probably like 5 to 7, and they're like spikes that you can put next to your plants. So I'm going to be adding some of these when I actually plant the plants. This one's for vegetables, and then I also had some that were just for all purpose, and so both of those will be fine. I've got several bags of these, and it's possible I could crunch these up and add them throughout the bed just to provide some nice supplement nutrition here. We also have some Dr. Earth that I got on sale, blood meal last, I think this was 2 years ago as well. I bought a bunch of blood meal and bone meal because I really like that. Hostas really like bone meal specifically. So a few years ago I was really into hostas, and I bought a bunch of bone meal. But both Dr. Earth, really good stuff. And then I generically have some of this Root Zone organic fertilizer, which I have used before, works really well. So I'm going to use this in this big bed as well. Probably use this whole thing. I'm going to go kind of heavy because, like I said, this is a big volume of soil. I think it took a total of 63 cubic feet almost, which is at least a couple yards of soil, and it's all the way to the bottom. So these are 17-inch tall beds. So on top of that, after I get all of these things mixed in, I'm also going to add some Azomite. So Azomite is a micronized rock dust, essentially, that adds a lot of micronutrients to your soil. So it's not necessarily things like NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium that are going to help your plants grow really vigorously throughout the season, but it is just a powder of various trace minerals. It's really nice. I'm going to go kind of heavy on this too. I usually add it every year. It's OMRI listed. Let's see what it looks like here. And it's not necessarily cheap. I think a bigger bag of this, I think I ordered potentially from Amazon. You may be able to find it at some local stores, but it's kind of a more unique product. It was around $50, but since it's a powder and you add smaller amounts of it, like cups at a time, this was like a 40-pound bag or something, 44 pounds, and it's a couple years old. So I've been using it for multiple years. Definitely get your money out of it. And I just add, a generous amount at the beginning of each season to add back some of those trace minerals that may have been depleted across the season. And after I add all of that stuff, I'm going to come through and add some fish fertilizer now to get the good bacteria brewing in these garden beds. I actually have this fish fertilizer. I might see if I can use it up this year. It's been several years old. You can see it's sit out in the sun and the bottle's changed a little bit, but that will give it some more active NPK values initially, and that way you don't have to wait for this other organic stuff to break down as much. And that'll get the good bacteria going for the season, and then we're going to plant all sorts of veggies. I'm actually thinking after I do this process, I may come out here and already put some cucumbers out from seed and see if I can get those germinated. We may or may not be past our last frost, but since I'm going to start them directly from seed outside, I'm not terribly concerned if I waste a seed. If we do have a last frost and it kills the seedling, I'll just reseed out here. I didn't have time to do a lot of starting from seed this season, mainly because I didn't know how this project was going to go, if I was going to be able to get the beds, if I was going to be able to get the soil, and how quickly I was going to do it. So I didn't want to end up with a bunch of seedlings I'd grown from seed with nothing to do with them. So we're just going to get started. I'm going to set up the camera. And like I said, I'm going to be very generous. So you may say, oh, he's adding a lot. Check the bag and see what the bag says. But since these are organic things, and this is a huge bed with lots of cubic feet of soil, it's going to take a lot to get this kind of charged up initially, since the potting soil itself was a neutral matter. So it'll tell you here, for new garden beds, mix into top 4 inches of soil at 4 pounds per 100 square feet. So square feet is going to be like individual squares, and so that's going to be like 23 square feet. I think it's talking about the top planting space. I think there's 23 square feet in this area. So this will be 4 pounds. This is a 8-pound bag, so at least half of this bag is all I have left. And I'm going to use probably a fourth of it to spread around evenly, because I'm going to be adding these other things in as well. Now I will say this is more than I would potentially do in a regular season. I typically just add a little bit of plant tone, some compost, and be on my merry way. But because this is a new bed, I want to start off right with lots of good stuff to get everything going, some good life into the soil. That way I can have a really successful planting season, hopefully. So if you have an existing bed, these might things you could add to supplement. I wouldn't necessarily recommend adding all of it because it might be wasteful, but we're going to try adding lots of good stuff in, proportion. The Azomite, it may look a little heavy because it is a powder, it's micronized. I'm actually going to go get a mask to put that in, because it will potentially blow and you don't need to be inhaling any of that. But the rest of it you can just shake in there as needed. So let's get started. So I've already added the compost, so I'm not adding any more compost. I just wanted to share what variety I used this year. We're just going to do a dusting there. I still have a good portion of this bag, at least a fourth of it. We'll do the Dr. Earth, and I'm going to use this entire packet on this bed because this doesn't go very far anyway. I think it says 1.5 cups per 10 square feet, or 1 3/4 cup per 12 square feet. So This doesn't go very far at all, and I can use the whole bag in this new bed. And these are probably made of the same things, but just to have a variety of different brands and formulations in here to get us started will be nice. Now, I'm not adding any of these spikes yet. I'll add those when I get plants actually planted in there. So there'll be some more direct nutrition next to the plant. Now, blood meal is a tiny, tiny pelletized organic feed that has lots of good stuff in it. So the NPK ratio on this blood meal is 13%, so it's actually quite high. So we're going to go a little more liberal with it. It's a nice source of quick kind of organic fertilizer though. And then bone meal has a much lower nitrogen level of 3% and a higher phosphate level of, what's this, 15%. So it will allow your plants to bloom a little better, and it is a little more of a powder. As you can see, I'm not really dumping, I'm just seasoning liberally like you would good food. This actually says you can mix 1.5 cups per 10 square feet of growing area. And like I said, this is 20 something, so you would use roughly almost 3 cups for that whole thing. And I probably did not even use that amount. Now the Azomite instructions, it does require quite a lot of this. So I've got a mask here because this is very much of a powder. So for smaller pots, it says per gallon pot, you add 1 heaping tablespoon. But for every 10 square feet, which this bed I think is around 23, as I mentioned, you add 1 to 2 pounds of product and spade into the garden soil. And then you can add compost or other fertilizer, it says, and spread. And you can even add this to like a spreader and spread it across your entire lawn, although that seems kind of expensive and wasteful. And so I'm just going to, I've got a heaping like garden tool in here. I'm going to just do several of those. It is very much a powder, so I'd recommend you wearing a mask just to keep from breathing that in. And just so you have a good view of it, this is what it looks like here. It's basically a dust. You can see how it goes everywhere. So I'm gonna add lots of that, and when we water it in, that'll go down into the soil column and provide lots of nice trace minerals to break down this season. Now after you get all of that added, I like to come through and use this. This is called a garden claw, and I got it locally at 𝗍𝗏𝗄𝗡 a few years ago. But it's a nice kind of ergonomic tool that allows you just quickly, with its tines, to go into the soil, kind of mix that up a little bit, and then we'll water it in. Now I'm going to add some good fish fertilizer on the top of this and then water it all in. I've got this, shake it up really good. The dogs are gonna love it, I'm sure. It's gonna be super smelly and disgusting, but it'll get a lot of good bacteria and things going for the season. And we'll do a few gallons of these. I think this is a 2-gallon container across the entire bed. And then I'll water in the rest of it to kind of get it settled more into the soil column. And it's really that simple. I am done with this project. I'll have to come back and do these taller beds after I get the plants out of them, like I mentioned, in the next week. But this will give me something to start at, because peppers grow in this one. They won't be put out for another few weeks until it warms up a bit. But this will house kale, my dahlias, cucumbers, 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝗡𝗏 melons potentially. And just so you know, this is something that I do at the beginning of the season. I don't tend to fertilize at all with anything after I initially fertilize with the organic things at the beginning of the season. I currently see there's a squirrel crawling into my shed I hope he comes out and this doesn't create a disaster. Let's see if we can get a sneak peek. Uh-oh. He hears me coming. He's panicking. This could be a Christmas vacation event. Oh, there he is. Okay, hello, little guy. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Okay, he didn't run up my legs. We're all good. Thank you guys for following along. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.